Hey there guys, Spazzy Dragon here, aka Syndromes, and welcome to episode 40 of our Avorion Let's Play with a twist. So, today's episode is actually a voiceover because, as you probably know, I'm not really a paragon of concentration and wisdom, and I really wanted to talk about a lot of things in this episode, but I also wanted to build a lot of things. So, what you're currently looking at is the footage that I got done recording just a few moments ago, and now I'm just going to record my voice over it in post and talk about a couple of things. And in today's episode we are going to be building two separate ships. One is going to be the quote big brother of our previous object, and yes, I will be posting those votes regarding the names of those ships very soon. And one of them is going to be a combat ship that is going to be the big brother version of our current object, and the other one is going to be a mining ship, which we are going to plant in the iron sectors. Mostly because since I'm using so many impulse dampeners on my ships, I do actually need a lot of iron on it. So that thing is going to solve that issue, and at the same time, unlike the other mining ships of ours, that one is going to receive not the civilian systems, but rather the civilian slash military turret systems, so that if needed, we can simply take it to beat up Mr. Swax for that little, weapon upgrade. Right, so, at the time of recording this video, I have published 39 episodes of my current Avorion Let's Play. So, with this being the round number 40, I wanted to kind of talk about my current experiences with the game, what do I think about its current state, and what I don't like about its current state, and of course what we're going to do in the upcoming episodes as we go on. At the time recording this, my current playthrough of this Let's Play has been around 33 hours, and my total playtime of Avorion has reached 315, which is plenty good enough for my first impressions, because I can't really say that this is going to be a review or a critique of the game, since I have, in fact, never ever finished it. Like, this is the furthest I've ever played this game, and I'm experiencing with you exactly how I'm experiencing it. So, yeah, there we go. Right, so, before I talk about some of these things, remember that everything that I'm about to say is purely subjective, and a lot of things that I'm going to be comparing with is obviously from my experiences with other games of similar types, especially Freelancer. So obviously there's some biases going to be, and it's really just comes down to the fact that I think in many cases those games have done certain things better than Avorion, and I kind of wish that, Avorion did likewise, but there you go. So, somewhere in the distant past, I was stupid enough to compare Avorion with Mount and Blade Warband. These days I obviously know better to do that, but at the same time I still think that they share some similarities, and when it comes to the overall presentation of the game world, I still think that Mount and Blade does it better, simply because of the way Avorion generates its content, and the key word here is generation. So, what makes it kind of interesting is that I think that randomly generated content, in essence, is amazing, and especially for replayability, because, again, if not for that replayability, I wouldn't be able to redo these Let's Plays every now and then, just try something else, right? But at the same time, I do believe that it is in the best interest of Avorion if it actually did keep some things not randomly generated. So what I mean by that, sectors, the connections between sectors, ships, all of that is completely fine, but I honestly think that the game kind of shoots itself in the foot by randomizing nations. Now, if Avorion was a complete sandbox, in the sense that there was no main storyline, there was no rush to the center, that it was just about surviving and managing resources and ships and conquering territory and being conquered, then yes, procedurally generated nations without any kind of, specific planning would make perfect sense. But the problem is, games that do that usually don't have a strict storyline, and they do it still pretty well. So, for example, you have Dwarf Fortress, you have Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead, Synthetic. All of them use these procedurally generated systems to make a world for them, and it works. But in Avorion, it's kind of different. Now, I honestly say that starting off with a few and unique, established, written mega empires in Avorion would actually be much better, and then you populate the territories between these established ones with actually randomly generated nations. That would work, and also preferably use normal names and not the, you know, sim-esque gibberish that we currently have. My problem with the randomly generated nations is not that it's randomly generated, but rather that the current game version, the building blocks that are being randomized when building a nation are not unique enough. They still all fly the same kinds of ships, they still have all the same kinds of stations, and really the only difference that I can perceive is the weapons that they use and the weapons they sell or usually lack in equipment dealers. I mean, holy hell, like, I wouldn't be able to tell you the name of the current allies we have in our current Let's Play near the border. Instead, I just remember that they had Pooh in their name, and if that is the only distinguishing factor about them, then yeah, something's wrong. So, this is my first gripe, and my first suggestion for maybe future updates of this game, or maybe for the modders. Instead of the whole game world being randomly generated, have about 5 or so persistent and unique written up nations, all with unique ship design seeds, unique weapons, and that would constantly make both war and peace with each other, and then fill the in-betweeny parts with independent states, smaller empires, pirates, whatever. And, you know, maybe it is going to be a little bit better then. So obviously this is just a suggestion from Mountain Blade Warband. Now, let's talk about progression. There is nothing really much I can say here that I haven't already told you in the previous Let's Plays. TLDR, I find that in its current state the game is really hard to play without a Wikipedia open, even though I terribly try not to do that. I really remember in one of the very older playthroughs, I came across a wormhole very early on in the game, and it took me very deep into either titanium or even neonite sections, and I completely missed SWACs. And even worse, now that you get the upgrade that shows you sectors with mass in them, there's even less chance that a player is going to naturally come across SWACs, because even if you're, say, traveling from point A to point B, usually you're going to be doing it in a way that allows for exploration, and so you're going to be trying to go for the green or yellow blips anyway. So again, coming across SWACs is kind of troublesome. There's obviously also the whole thing about mad science labs, in that they are neutral to players, which means that they don't really seem worth attacking unless you're playing an unlawful or a opportunistic character. And yeah, but really the biggest detriment I currently have are the wormholes. So in the current Let's Play, I managed to skip from the very beginnings of Neonite straight into Xanian. I would not have anything against wormholes if they connected opposing ends of the galaxy, but remained in the same material zones. But right now, as they are, they completely slag the progression of the game. Not only I end up skipping over content, but I had to specifically go back. Like, it had to be a self-inflicted limitation so that I could actually go through all of these other materials to get to where I currently am at the barrier. So right now, as they are detrimental. So the fix is simple enough, I think. There should be 2 types of wormholes. The first one is going to be usable as they currently are, and the only difference is that the end of these wormholes are going to be in the same material belt as the entrance. And then you have the second type, which only connects between gaps of the material belt. So they are intent to be a shortcut, but are only usable by players who have their ship made of trinium or Xanian. So at that point in time, you hit the barrier, you have to go around, you have to seek out the older quests, and then shortcuts are actually very good for you. And that would be, you know, kind of the TLDR suggestion for it. But yeah. What else? What else? Well, anyway, moving on. Ship flight dynamics. Honestly, not a fan. Okay, so of course my baseline comparison for this is going to be Freelancer. But I've played enough other space sims that I can tell you that it is more of a personal preference here, but I honestly cannot stand the inertia-based, frictionless flight model that Avorion has. In my opinion, if the game gives you a chance to maneuver in 3 dimensions, it should really make the most of it, and Avorion does not make the most of it. And it really does just comes down to the simple fact, out of all the realistic things to preserve in this otherwise sci-fi game with space lasers and aliens and jump drives and, you know, wormholes, was the choice to focus on ship handling being revolving around mass, velocity, and zero friction environments. It feels terrible. Everything is just sliding around. And I know what you're gonna say, but Spazzy, you already use inertia dampeners. Yes, but that thing cuts off whenever you strafe, and it kind of defeats the purpose at that point. Again, it also takes up a huge amount of your energy, and also thrusters have also that same problem. They're just not nearly powerful enough where placing them in a way that would compromise the visual design of the ship. And yes, we are talking about a mix between game mechanics and, you know, aesthetics, because, hey, it's a shipbuilding game. Aesthetics are important at some point, but I don't know, maybe people like the whole 1979 Asteroids gameplay, but just like with that game, you're kind of sacrificing the ability to shoot forward whenever you have to make sharp turns, because in most cases you're going to be having to be pointing almost retrograde because you're trying to slow down and make a turn at the same time, so you're just facing completely away from the enemy. I think that having a omnipresent drag value in every single ship would kind of make sense a little bit more, and it would make the game's overall PvE more interesting, because right now the flight patterns, especially for NPCs, they favor straight lines and very little movement between covering distances. If the game ships are much more responsive by default, this would actually allow for the implementation of certain, I don't know, dodging or kiting patterns for NPCs, because right now they are woefully primitive. They try to enter range, point as many guns at the enemy as they possibly can, and then unload with just complete disregard to what is around them. Actually, on the subject of NPCs are dumb. And there's just not really much to say here. Maybe it is the limitation of the game's engine, I don't know, but they are just dumb, and nothing kills me more than watching a ship I designed fail to live up to my expectations, where it just tries and fails to orient itself to face an enemy to shoot it, where I could clearly see it try to get off a checklist in the way of, I am facing the enemy, yes, no, orient myself, approach, shoot, and then the freaking thing goes flying off the edge of the map as it tries to catch up to an equally dumb ship whose AI is trying to get X amount of distance between them and their current target before it would attempt to turn around to make a strafing run. Now, let me say nothing more about it. I can only imagine the effort involved to make them as smart as they are now must have been, you know, tremendous, but yeah, no. Right. The building of ships is, at this point, probably the best part about it. And ever since the devs implemented the token system, the game is actually much more forgiving, and you can allow yourself to have multiple ships, you know, stupid AI notwithstanding, and not worry about suffering too large of a loss if you do lose a few of those ships to poor AI. I think it is something we saw pretty well in the recent episodes. And every now and again, I tend to snap my camera around while flying, especially on the ship with a view, and it just unintentionally just kind of zooms into the ship, and I just look at this polished metal texture on it. I just can't help but to think that the game does an actually amazing job and making even my current efforts of shipbuilding look nice, which I'm not going to be completely modest. I think I have improved in my design of ships, but still, it really does add to it. But yeah, what exactly are we doing next? First of all, I must address two specific comments made by Leonardo Cristino and William Morgan regarding my use of AI-controlled ships, which is, yes, I know that they are bad, but the thing of the game, and the thing about, my current playthrough, is that shipbuilding is a huge deal, and I want to build ships. I want to see them in game, I want to see them fly. I can only fly one ship. So if I have this mechanic where the ships can be flown by NPCs, they can try to be useful in combat, then I'm going to do. I'm going to make use of this, even if it's kind of impractical. But yeah, you are right. I will probably have to focus on flying Mr. Krabs and, fly him manually, simply because it is just our current most heavy-hitting ship, so you might as well kind of, make use of it. Anyway, regarding the Let's Play itself, here are some of my recent observations. Number one, we probably want to start focusing down on some of the older quests, such as the research station one, or the system that you need to get off the trader. Actually, speaking of traders, number two, I want to try to use the Trading Guild beacon, just to see what kind of stuff they offer and if they're better than the stuff that is currently offered in the equipment dealer. Number three, launcher turrets. Honestly, I'd rather go for some pulse cannons at this point, because it seems like shields in general are starting to become a bit of an issue. Number four, fighters are kind of equally and honestly, until there is a very quick way to tell a NPC-driven carrier to scoop up their fighters without having to jump into that ship and do it manually, I'm not going to be using them. And I probably am missing here something here, because it seems like it's something that the game should already have. So maybe I was just blind to it, and for all I know, it's either in the strategic map mode, or maybe there's a key binding for it. I don't know. I'll figure this out. Number six. Ever since the last battle, I think that every single of my ships will need a engine bypass system. Yeah, that's it. Number seven, a repair ship. We need a repair ship, because I kind of want to see this, I kind of want to make a little bit more use of that tactical map, and jumping into the system and just zooming that repair ship out of harm's way, and just letting these engine bypassed, zippy equipped ships just go back and repair themselves, kind of sounds like a good idea. Number eight, there is an issue that's cropping up a lot in terms of the refinery. Basically what happens, if you bring a lot of ore to a ore depot, you have to sit through a very long process of refining. This would not be a problem if you were to control the ship manually, but you're not controlling the ship manually. So what happens is that the AI just sits there for up to half an hour, by the way, and is just waiting for the ore to, get processed. So that is kind of problematic, and there is a mod that fixes this by simply removing the timer, but I'm hesitant to employ that, and I think I'll kind of leave it up to a vote. What else? Number nine, finish Mr. Krabs. I'm actually waiting for a proper chance to host a live stream and work on Mr. Krabs during the weekend. No promises just yet, seeing as though today is only a Tuesday as I'm recording this voiceover, but I'm planning on it, so, keep that in mind. And number 10, I will want to bring all of my ships into one system, just kind of line them up in a single parade line, and kind of talk about them, about each one for those who are currently joining us only now. And yeah, that's pretty much it for today. Anyway, ladies and gents, thanks for sticking around with this little TLDR video of mine. It started off kind of complainty, and I hope that my complaints are valid enough. But yeah, I will start going through that little checklist of ours starting from episode 41. And yeah, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. play safe.